Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today we're going to talk about pizza. Yeah, I'm hungry. It's in the background. We're going to open that box up in a minute. But we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about giving to the community. We're going to talk about raising a family. We're going to talk about what happens when things go wrong. Today, we have in studio the owner of Rockstar Pizza, Colby Matthews. Welcome to the show, Colby.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we get into Rockstar Pizza, tell me who Colby Matthews is.
Oh, goodness.
I know you're a jack of all trades. We talked.
Honestly, and I can't even take credit for the pizza stuff. I kind of married into it. My husband already owned a pizza place when I met him. But I don't know. I think first and foremost, I'm a mom. Okay. That's my, right now, my biggest focus is on my children. They're at that, 8th and 9th grade. So still very hands-on. I'm their chauffeur to all their activities, all that kind of stuff. So
you're from Lebanon, Indiana. This is your hometown,
mm-hmm. Lebanon, yeah. It's about maybe 30 minutes north from here.
I know where it is, but what's it like growing up there? I passed through there.
Oh, well, here's the thing. Lebanon today is not the Lebanon I grew up in at all. Small town, I could not wait to leave. I really couldn't. That's all I could think about is what am I going to do? And my uncle lived in Washington, D.C., and so I went to J. Everett Light Career Center, which is right over there at North Central High School. Mm-hmm. And that's when I did that my senior year, and that's when I did radio television, and I thought, this is something I'm interested in. And so I went to college. I went to Vincennes University for 2 years, which they have an amazing radio television program, or they did. And then I transferred to Ball State and then graduated. And then my uncle lives in D.C., so I did an internship at a radio station and a television station. And that's how I kind of fell into the business, and I worked in the music business doing record promotion for a while. And then I was ready to move home. My dad was getting older. I'd missed out on a lot of things. And I moved home, met my husband. He did pizza. I worked for Epic Records for a couple years. And that's actually where he got the name Rockstar Pizza, because I worked in the business. So he put the records that I got for working, with certain artists on the wall and the pictures on the tables. And I kind of was like, I don't know if this is going to fly. People don't want to see my face on the tables. But it kind of gave it, something that sticks out. And so then after.
You mentioned, let's go back a minute. You mentioned, I know Lebanon. I passed through it. And it's almost like one of those towns that you'll go through it and you'll miss it.
Oh, for sure.
What were some of the reasons that you wanted to leave?
Well, I mean, it was a small town. And I was bored. Do you know what I mean? For me, it was just I'm just trying to get through school to get to something bigger. What do I want to do? And when I decided that I wanted to do radio television, my uncle lived in D.C., so I thought, this is perfect, because when you do an intern, I don't know if it's different now, but at that time, you didn't get paid.
Right.
They were free internships. So it's how do you move to another state? So I actually was working at the Disney store at Castleton, and I transferred to out there, and I would work on the weekends at the Disney store and intern during the week, and I lived with my uncle. And
was your uncle like a role model?
I mean, yeah. I know, my whole life growing up, we would spend every spring break and every summer going out to D.C.
Okay.
So it got to the point where it's we'd go to Washington, D.C., and we would just, I would bring a friend, and we would just go to the museums that had the best food court or the best cafeterias. It became our playground. Do you know what I mean? So when I was looking to sort of get out of Indiana, that I was like, I can stay with him and do an internship. And Washington, D.C. is I think it's a top 10 market. So I'm setting myself up. But then what was funny is my dad, who worked for GM his whole life. So for him to go, I remember when I graduated from college, he was like, you're going to go work for free after we've just paid for 4 years of college. And I was like, Dad, it's not like what you did. It's who you know. I have to get out there. I have to be seen. I have to meet people. And I took advantage of the fact that my uncle lived in a big city and moved in with him. And I did. It put me in people's faces. I worked at, I interned at the Fox station in DC, where they at the time were filming America's Most Wanted, and we actually had our intern party in the America's Most Wanted studio, and that was fun. But then I actually interned for a show that at the time was called Not Just News. It was a nationally syndicated children's television show, and I thought this was going to be amazing. I wanted to do TV, but what the reality of it is that they sent their host to Paris. They recorded all the shows, and then I sat in an editing bay with headphones on and transcribed time code so that the editor could come in behind me and know which was the right take, so they could edit. I mean, it was dull as dishwater. I was like, this is miserable. I'm sitting in this dark corner, miserable. And then when I wasn't doing that, they would be like, here, just call the tourist bureau for every state in America and ask for video. So that way, if we decide to do a show about Tennessee, we can pull footage from that. So I would sit in an office by myself and call and ask them to, I mean, it was just horrible. Meanwhile, I was spending my mornings at the radio station and my afternoons. I worked with the morning show. We were going on trips to Kings Island and doing things with the listeners, and it was a lot of fun. And somebody from Mercury Records came in, brought an artist, and met me, and then they passed my name on to a company that eventually hired me. I remember getting a call, and they were like,
why do you think they hired you? What did you bring to what did you think what did Mercury find in you that was so interesting?
Well, I think, she came in, and I've always kind of been outgoing. I've always been able to talk to anybody. They had recently a new program director who was kind of a hard nut to crack for the rest of the staff. He was from Ohio, and he just loved me. We clicked. So she saw that this person who was kind of a crusty guy, that like he gave me more attention and looked to me more to help him as an assistant than he did even the staff.
That's called that Midwest connection.
I know, and I heard that a lot. When I moved out to Maryland, we would go to New York all the time. We would go to New York, because it's a 3-hour train ride, and they'd be like, hey, you would go to work and they would be like, hey, there's a album listening party tonight. Everybody go home and get changed. We're going to go. And so I would find myself, like, first time I ever rode in a limo was once I was in DC, that like the record companies would send a limo to take us down to the 930 Club to see a band. I'm like this hick. I'm in this limo. I'm like, I've never been in a limo before. Oh my God. But I heard all the time, you're not from around here, are you? Because it's that Midwest thing. Please, thank you. Just, it's a different sort of, I hate to use the word charm to describe myself, but like, I don't have that wall up. You know what I mean? I'm not aloof.
When did the opportunity clearly open up for you? Because at your location at Rockstar Pizza, you mentioned that it's embedded, the tables are embedded with pretty much your career. What were some of the highlights of your career?
Oh gosh. A lot of it was
so
just,
many.
Well, no, it's just like, being this girl from Lebanon who was, and still kind of is a small town, to find to have a job where I'm getting on the train and going to New York and then checking into a hotel, and then we're meeting for drinks with the record company executives, and then we're going to, I remember right when RCA had signed Christina Aguilera, they invited us down, and, at this point.
Did you see her?
Oh yeah, I met her a couple times. So basically it was funny. They invited us down, and she had just been signed by RCA. And
Jesus Christ, RCA. My mom used to work for RCA.
I know, I'm dating myself.
In Indianapolis.
And I don't even think RCA, everything's been absorbed. And again, you went from all these little, all these record companies to 3 big ones or whatever. But what I remember was that Christina she was the first artist at that time who unsigned was on I can't remember which soundtrack it was. Maybe it was Mulan, and RCA signed her. And so they wanted to have a big party. And we went down there, and she was lovely. It couldn't have been more lovely. Well, fast forward a year, we had offices in LA, and I'm in LA, and the guy, my friend at RCA, I guess at that time he was probably the senior VP, was like, oh, she's doing a show for Kiss FM, go. And so, oh gosh, I'm like, should I be telling these stories? But anyways, we go, right? And she didn't want to come out of her dressing room. To go out on stage, and I remember oh wow, and she had they'd had a special promotion where all across the country you could win to have lunch with Christina at the Hard Rock Cafe in LA. And I happened to get to go and sit at her table because I'm just there hanging out with the record company. And I remember her new assistant, who she just hired, like cutting her food for her, like cutting her own food. You have to understand, this was like 25 years ago or something, whatever. But I just remember sitting there thinking, well, she's certainly changed since I met her a year ago. It's amazing to see what success does for a lot of people. But then I met Sting a couple times. Like, he would come, and he was amazing.
I just saw Sting on the Steve Martin, the Murder in
Oh yes, Murder in the Building.
Yeah.
Yes,
like,
he has a real. He has.
Yeah.
I love. I'm currently on season 3, but he was like. So the contrast was like, he did a show at Nissan Pavilion, I think, and I hate to say it because it sounds really, but like whenever we would do stuff, we would always like, is there a meet and greet involved? Because like, I'm not sure I want to drive 45 minutes and just sit in the cheap seats. Like, that was sort of the life that you live, right? So he literally, he did a sound check party. So it's me, there's maybe 20 of us, and we're literally like, it's sort of like Deer Creek, whatever it's called now, the outdoor pavilion, and we're just all sitting there in the first and second row, and he comes out and he's sound checking, and he pulls a girl on stage, and he has her duet, Don't Stand So Close to Me. Like, I'm like, this dude is like unaffected by how many albums he sold, by his career, you know. He's just, and then he came down and he was like, I'll sign whatever, because a lot of times it's like one thing, you get one thing, and so he just literally stood there and signed everything everybody put in front of him and did photos.
After that?
It was, I mean, you're like,
I like Sting.
I mean, I'm like, the guy's down to earth.
Really?
He's, well, listen, 25 years ago, and then another meet and greet that I went to at the same place, he had a professional photographer, and you went back, and I mean, that's one of my favorite pictures, because he's like holding on to my friend and I, and you can see like his hands are, I mean, it's not like where they're all standing there like this. He's like, you know, and you're like, damn, this is awesome, you know. So he was the highlight for me, because here's a guy that I grew up listening to, and he couldn't be more friendly and down to earth.
Who was the most arrogant
son
of a bitch?
I
know there had to be several.
So we had a studio. So we had an office building in Columbia, Maryland. And so a lot of, like, Britney Spears, I'll never forget, they called us. And they're like, hey, because we were right in between 2 stations. We were right in between the top 40 in Washington, D.C. and the top 40 in Baltimore. So we were a natural progression. If a record company was doing the little tour with their new artist, they would always stop and see us. And it was like 4 o'clock on a Friday. Most people had jetted out early. And they're like, hey, we just left D.C. We want to bring in this Britney Spears, you know, Hit Me Baby One More Time. And I think she was 15 or 16. And there are like 5 of us left at the and I wish the phones were, like, I wish I could do the live, and there was none of that, right? Like, we didn't even have a camera, but she came in our office, huge conference table, and sat down, and was the nicest, ma'am, sir, like, you know, the manners, like, had that real Southern charm, you know, and she was amazing. So I say all that to say that we would get artists beginning, like some of these people I'm sure are like serving like fries at McDonald's now, but a lot of them, you know, blew up. They brought in Avril Lavigne, and it was right when I don't remember, but they brought her in, and she had not blown up yet at all. She was not a star, and she just sat there and like just seemed so annoyed, like did not want to be there, like, you know, you try to engage with her, you know, my bosses, you know, and it's just one word answers, and she just couldn't be more disinterested in the whole thing. And it was like, And then, but I mean, here's the thing: you can't deny her talent. The album came out and it had so many good songs on it. She blew up, but she just was very. It's already kind of weird sometimes when you're meeting celebrities in that way, where, you know, you're just kind of with the record company, you're just saying hi or whatever. So you already kind of sometimes feel awkward, and when they make you, it's clear that they're don't even want to be there, and that makes you feel even worse.
Especially when you're buying their.
Right, and it's like, so she was not friendly at all, and I don't know, maybe that's changed, but there used to be a magazine called Network 40 that was an industry publication, and on the back page, they would always have snaps. You know, you could submit your pictures, and it was always like the record companies brought their artist in, and it was always pictures, and it was the joke, like every picture that you ever saw, like Avril when they took her the tour, she was always like, you know, this, and looked whatever. It was like, it was a joke, because she clearly did not schmooze. Sometimes you have to schmooze, especially when you're a brand new artist and you're trying to
open the door.
Like you want the program, because I'm going to tell you, like a lot of artists that are super friendly and super good at what they do, you can charm a program director to play a song that they might have not played, but they met you and they liked you. Now the world's changed tremendously.
Let's talk about that. You were in the studio and you saw what I did. What's changed in your in your world?
Well, I mean, I haven't been involved in any of this in forever. And as I kind of mentioned to you at the end of my career in the music business, I remember the record companies getting excited about ringtones. Like I worked with Natasha Bedingfield and it was like, oh, look at this, we've reached 1 million ringtones sold. And it was on the cusp of everything changing. You don't need a record company to be successful. You don't need them to pave the way, because technology and social media and all the ways that you can reach people on your own, there's no gatekeeping that anymore. If you're, cream rises to the top, and you don't need somebody to invest a lot of money and then take a huge percentage of your earnings for the rest of your life.
Knowing what you went to school for, let's go back to your dad for a minute when he says you're going to work for free. But now you said what you went to school for has totally changed. If you had to do it all over again, what would you have done differently? Because the industry has changed so much with the technology.
Honestly, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, that was the time that I grew up. That was the time that, there was nothing to change. That was the way of the world. And I'll be honest, I really feel like I gotta be in the business during the heydays when it was very much. When it
was a meet and greet and you really got
it was
hands-on experience with the artists.
Right. It was like grassroots. Do you know what I'm saying? It was it was an exciting thing to be a part of, There wasn't like, oh, here, I'm going to send you a YouTube link to watch this new artist. It was like, hey, we're doing a showcase in New York, and they're bringing in people from all over the country to come and watch these artists. Well, now, again, I haven't been involved in a long time. I don't know if they really still do that, but that's money that doesn't need to be spent on something like that. So, but at the time, it was like there was a lot of money being spent for bringing us up to New York and taking, the conventions. That's something we always looked forward to. Is there'd be 2 or 3 record company music conventions that might be in Sacramento, it might be in New Orleans. It was always super fun places, and the record companies would bring in their artists, and it was just a big schmooze fest.
And do your kids know any of the artists that are?
My kids think so. This literally happened last week. I'm in the car, and my son, who's 13, says, "Oh my gosh, is this Unwritten?" And it was Natasha Bedingfield. And I said, "Oh yeah," it was on the radio. I said, "It is." I said, "Do you know? I actually worked with her." I said, "She did a show in Cincinnati, and I had to drive her to Michigan. We had to go to Grand Rapids the next day." And he goes, "Yeah, that's great, Mom. Can you turn it up?" He did not care. He did not want to hear my story. Nothing. I also had a friend that was that I met at the 930 Club. He was a Secret Service agent, and he loved music, and so we exchanged information. So when my friends would come to town, or record company, radio station people, I would reach out to him. We would all go meet out for dinner about 4 blocks away from the White House. I would pay. I had a company credit card, so I'd have a table. There'd be 6 or 7 of us. I'd buy him dinner. We would walk over to the White House. 9, 10 o'clock at night, he'd show his badge. We would all go in the White House, and we would get an impromptu tour, because he would, I did that with him 3 or 4 times. The tours were never the same, because it was, we'd walk in, he'd be flipping on lights, and isn't
that against the law?
It wasn't 20 years ago. No, you could not do that today. That's what I'm saying. I feel like I worked in the music business when it was good. Yeah. But I was telling my kids, so one time when we went, we got to see the movie theater. One time there was one of the guys that worked on the grounds. He let us all look through his night vision goggles, he's making sure nobody's. So I'm telling my kids that my kids are 2nd, 3rd grade, because they're a year apart, and they get in the car, and my son is like, "Mom, we've been talking about the White House, and did you know there are 9 kitchens?" And my daughter's like, "Oh my God, can you imagine?" And I said, "You guys, I've actually toured the White House." And I start to tell them the story I just told you, and my daughter's like, "Yeah. Oh my God, if I were president, I would say pajamas every day." They just don't even care that I've actually been there. I'm like, "Okay, guys, that's cool. Yeah, good talk."
Let's talk about someone that does care. let's talk about your husband and you and the creation of Rockstar Pizza, because here's a guy that clearly loves you so much, and that took your
my job, my identity, right?
Your identity, but still kept it alive by creating Rockstar Pizza. How did this come about?
Well, this is so dating myself. I met him on Yahoo Singles, and I was still living in D.C.
Wait a minute, you met him where?
Oh, so I had gotten out of a 7-year relationship that was horrible, right? And one of my radio guys we're on the phone. I haven't been in the dating pool and whatever. This would have been probably 2001, 2002. And he's telling me about this. I'm like, really? Online dating? And I knew I was moving home because I already had the job for Epic. So I went ahead and created a profile and said I lived in Indiana, although I wasn't going to be there. Because, I mean, I don't expect to meet anybody this quickly. Well, I met him. We're talking, back and forth. And he came out and visited me, and then we moved back home. I moved back to Indiana. What's really, I guess, kind of nice is, like, he wasn't starstruck. Like, he never made me feel like that was a draw. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of times he was like, I don't even know who you're talking about.
Did he ask what you did?
Oh yeah, he knew. And, but he, one of the things that people even as recently as probably 5 or 6 years ago, when people hear that I used to be in the music business, like, can you get me tickets? No, I really can't. And not only that, but like, record companies don't do the tickets like that used to be. Like, back in the day, the record reps would have 10 pair of tickets, 15 pair of tickets, and it was kind of up to them what they did with it. And now they don't do that anymore. So I would always get, asked, favors and stuff, and he never cared or wanted or asked or anything. And but he was in between his old pizza shop, and he knew we were going to open a new one, and he's like, I want to call it Rockstar Pizza, and I want to use all your memorabilia.
Hold on. He already had a pizza shop?
He did. It was called Red Barn Pizza.
Did you try the pizza?
Oh yeah. I mean, I like pizza. Look at me. I don't look like someone who doesn't eat pizza. But when he was doing it, it was a little bit south, and we got married. We wanted to move to Brownsburg, and so he, of course, that's his job, owning a pizza shop. So he's like, I want to open one in Brownsburg, and I think we should call it Rockstar, and I want to use your memorabilia and the photos and things because I think it's a neat little niche, So we did.
Did he need to rebrand, or did he rebrand because of his affection for you?
Well, so it was called Red Barn Pizza because it was in a red barn. Let me tell you, that's another little story. He found us a bit of land that it was owned. He talked to this is off of Kentucky Avenue. He talked to the landowner. He was like, yeah, you can build a little shop here. Well, the city wouldn't approve it. He couldn't get permits, but he could get a permit to build like a barn. So it was a loophole. So he literally built like a storage shed barn thing and painted it red, and it was Red Barn Pizza. And that's how he kind of got around. And it was not, you couldn't even go in. I mean, it really was like you walked in, there was a big counter, and then there was a kitchen in the back. Like, it was carry out and delivery only. And then, the land changed hands, and we had to evacuate. Okay. In fact, it's a strip mall now. So then he was like, I want to get a place in Brownsburg. And so it didn't make sense.
Brownsburg, out of all the places.
At the time, my brother lived there, and we liked it. Like, we liked, we just liked the town, and but it wouldn't make any sense to be Red Barn Pizza, So he was like, I want to call it Rockstar, and I want to use your stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, it feels weird to me. I don't want to be front and center, but all right, this is your rodeo, not mine. Because at the time I was still working in the music business, so we opened it up, and that's why he called it Rockstar Pizza. But as so for a long time we had like my records and stuff on the walls, but then he got the idea a couple years ago. We took it all down, and so now we showcase local artists.
What do you mean your records? You singing now?
No, so like when the record companies would hire my company to help them promote their artists, when it would reach a certain level and they would produce those gold records, they would send us them as thank yous. I mean, I have like, 11 or 12 for different ones,
Really?
Yeah, like I've got a Lenny Kravitz 5 from the album 5 that's shaped like a 5. It's just a giant 5, and it's got, it's kind of cool. Those were always like that. Was always
Lenny Kravitz on it too?
Yeah, it's got like his artwork from the album. Album 5.
Did he autograph it?
No, but I have met him, and he was lovely. We went to one of his shows. So yeah, my biggest regret. So my son has currently discovered Eminem with the new single that he put out. He didn't. So my son has been listening to Eminem a lot. About I don't know how many years ago, Eminem was down in D.C. and the rep reached out and was like, I got tickets. There's a meet and greet. And I remember it was a work night, and I was just like, do I want to go? Like, I don't really want to drive 45 minutes, and I didn't go. And I would go back in time because I would blow my kid's mind if I had a picture with Eminem. Like, I would blow his mind.
You didn't want to go meet
I didn't want
Marshall.
No, I did not. I just turned it down. Marshall Madness. I know. Like, there were just times, like, I'll never forget when there was I can't remember what it was called. There was a big concert at RFK Stadium. It was like one of those all day, all bands. And I was really good friends with one of the reps for Jive. And I had tickets and passes. And I remember I called him and I'm like, do you want to go? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, he's like, do you have backstage? I'm like, yeah, I've got the passes where we can run around. And we like went back and forth. And then we decided to go. But I mean, you really just, because it was your job and your life, that it became that like on your downtime, you didn't always want to go do it because it was such an all consuming career that like, I mean, that's why I could never work in that business now because my kids come first and I have obligations. Like this is the kind of career where it is everything. You know, you eat, you breathe, you sleep it. You go to work not knowing if you're going to be in New York tonight. You just don't know. And you have to be ready to do whatever they ask you to do. Because if you don't, somebody else will. So, you know, so then, yeah, I regret it. I wish I'd gone down to see the Eminem show and met him. I do. I wish I had.
So now you have even a more challenge. You started Rockstar Pizza. What are some of the challenges that you guys had to deal with?
Oh my goodness.
Because you're independent. Small businesses are difficult to.
I don't have the buying power of Domino's and Papa John's. Like when we buy cheese, when we buy pepperoni, I'm not buying for 10,000 stores. I'm buying for one. And so I'm paying more, which means I cannot match the prices that you get at chain. So you're battling that. You're battling the fact that it's
How
more
much of a
expensive.
difference in price is it? So the viewers can understand.
Well, I mean, the fact that like, you know, you can still, I think if you go on the app, you can get a large pizza at Domino's for like $6.99, a large 2-topping. I have more than $6.99 in a large 2-topping. Like if I were to try to price match that, like I wouldn't make a dime. And depending on the ingredients, like depending on the toppings, I might actually be in the red. So I can't match. So our approach has always been like, I'm not trying to beat other people in price. I'm trying to beat them in experience and just
and quality.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Absolutely. Quality, but also, again, I mean, there are so many options of where you can get pizza. Like, what can I do to differentiate myself? How can I stand out of the pack? And so I've always, I'm pretty good. I'm the one who runs our Facebook page. I'm always posting. And it's not all about pizza. Like, I mean, I want our followers, I want our community to know who we are. I want them to feel like they know us. I mean, we live in the community. We give back as much as we can. You know, I'm always out, you know, at a game or doing something with my kids. So it's like, it's important. We love Brownsburg, and it's important that we are a part of the community and we give back and that we make Brownsburg a better place to live in any way that we can. We have a board, you know, where if somebody wants to buy a meal and put it on the board for somebody who comes in and can't afford it, you know,
that's kind of neat.
We do that. And, you know, a lot of times when it's sitting there and it's kind of thin, we just print out a bunch of tickets and put them up there ourselves, like, and just kind of consider it a donation. Like, you know, at any given time, half the tickets on there are things that we've just put on there. So, but it's there if the community wants to come in and say, you know what, ring me up for a large pizza. And they pay for it, and then we put the ticket on the board. And then if somebody comes in and they, you know, can't afford it or whatever, then they can just pull the ticket off the board and it's paid for and get whatever that's on the ticket.
It's almost like play it forward. I remember a while back when they was doing that with the drive-through, and somebody paid for me, and my daughter goes, well, Dad, you got to pay for the next person. Like, well,
what if they ordered a lot? Right?
Yeah,
like you have a coffee and you're like, what if they got 6 frappuccinos?
Yeah, I'm like, pay for what? But that's a nice motto that you guys do that. But you also did something that was really touching. You went to every small business. You're talking about support. This woman and her family is definitely doing everything they can for Brownsburg. You literally went out to all the several small businesses, and bought gift cards.
Right.
And gave them to other individuals.
So, yeah, it was right at the beginning of COVID when we were all, I mean, I remember my kids, it was right around the time of spring break, and they let the kids out a week early, and then they didn't go back to school. Like, we didn't know, right? Like, they sent them home a week before spring break, and they were going to, you know, do work from home, whatever. And then we just didn't go back, and that's when the whole country was locked down. And it's scary. I mean, it's really scary. You don't know what the future holds. And generally, you know, your first impulse is like, we gotta we got to tighten up. We can't spend any money because we don't know if we're going to get more. But I wanted to kind of push back against that because I knew we were all feeling that way. So I kind of just decided, you know what, like, oh my gosh, so there's an amazing business that you should reach out to, Papa Kernel. We'll talk about it whenever. But they were opening during COVID. And the day they opened at 10 a.m. I called and I placed a $150 order for popcorn and then had the guy delivered, and he brought it to the pizza shop. And we gave it away to customers. Because I wanted them to have that start of a and so not only did they get that sale, but then now we're handing it out and people are trying it and they're aware of it, and it helps, and I'm posting that we're doing it so that, you're hoping that you're helping them spread the word.
How badly did you guys get affected with COVID? Because you went through it, but you survived. But if it had went longer than what it did?
We would have been okay. And I think it's because the model of our business, we have dine-in, carry-out, and delivery. Mm-hmm. And so we had to get rid of dine-in. Obviously, we weren't allowed to do dine-in. But our customers, when you already offer those things, you're not retraining your customers to think of you in a certain way. Like, then you saw other restaurants, right, that don't do carry-out and don't do delivery are now offering it because they have to stay alive. And I think that's a bigger hurdle because now you're trying to get people to think of you to call it. Like I remember some of the Mexican restaurants were doing like margaritas to go and really being really creative. And you have to like sort of, if your customer doesn't already expect that from you, you have to sort of teach them that. And so for us, it wasn't so bad. And because we do a lot. Like I really felt like the community rallied around us and they supported us. And so what we had to do was we had to cut back on hours, but what we did is we did maybe some of the teenagers who were just like working, and we made sure that we kept, the adults that counted on the income to keep their families afloat. We made sure that we prioritized like who was a part-time job and so we were able to we didn't lose anybody. We were able to keep everybody with the money coming in and stuff. And Brownsburg is a wonderful town. And so people would come in and they would tip, so my servers, even though they weren't making tips from tables, they would still leave making the same amount as they normally would waiting on tables because people were so generous and wanted to, you just want to spread kindness any way you can. So we did okay. The following year was 2021 really was hard because that's when the supply chain issues came into effect. So now suddenly we weren't able to get in our stuff. And I remember, we have trucks that come maybe 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and they come and they're supposed to be there by 5. Well, I remember, they would just not show. And sometimes you would just come, they didn't show at all. And now we don't have any cheese or pepperoni, because they weren't able to come because these companies weren't able to hire enough truck drivers, because the thing with the truck drivers is they have to have downtime. So if they've already put in their X amount of hours, even if they don't want to, they have to stop. They can't keep driving because it's a safety issue. Yeah. So now you're stretching it thin with less drivers, and they can only work so many hours. One night, this is a testament to my husband, our truck came really late. We were the last stop. Not the last stop of deliveries, but the last one that they could make. So what my husband did was he and the food rep met the truck, and my husband loaded up supplies for other pizza places. There's another pizza place, and he went and delivered it to them because the truck, they weren't going to get it otherwise. That guy had to go back to his hotel and go to bed.
Community service.
He and the rep. So the rep had a small car, but my husband has a truck. They loaded up my husband's truck, and my husband was out till midnight, 1 a.m. dropping off pizza supplies at other pizza places.
Did the other pizza places knew that your husband
probably
did
this? I'm at home with the kids, but I'm sure they did. He just, that's what you do, right? We're a helper. We're all in this together. I think it was Pasquale's. I can't remember. There was a couple, but he was like, I know what it's like. I know how devastating it is to not get the product that you need. If I can help them, I'm going to do it.
What did you learn, and what did you do different? What did you put in place for your company for the unforeseen? Because I think that whole situation with businesses collapse are being forced to shut down for something that extreme. Nobody has ever really sat down and says, what do we have in place for if this happens again? or if something like this happens to us again?
I mean, I think that I don't know that there's anything that we would do different. I think having been through it, if a similar situation came up, he would know this is what we got to do. Like one of the first things we did was we installed not hand washing stations, but where you put your hand in, puts your antibacterial, words. We had those like at the counter, so you could, and we did curbside parking where it's like if you did not want to have any contact, you pull up, you call us, you pay over the phone. My worker will come out and set the pizza box on your hood and go back inside. And then you wait, and then you get the pizza box. So you don't have to interact with a person at all. So we tried to do everything we could to make people feel as comfortable as we possibly could so that we could, stay open, so that we would still have business. So I think that we would probably just do what we did was pretty effective in far as being able to stay open for carry out and delivery. And I think we would just continue. We know now, like that's what we did. We learned, and we would, again, I think it's the model, excuse me, of our business where we already do carry out and we already do delivery. So it's not a huge adjustment to make some tweaks to, like I said, we had signs made, curbside parking. We created 4 parking spaces in front of the building. We put a phone number. We got a second cell phone so that you weren't calling the shop phone. The phone was up front at the counter, and you called that number, and my person at the counter answered and said, "Oh, what's the name on it? Did you want to pay?" Boom, and then brought the food out to you. So just trying to troubleshoot,
Who comes up? I was looking, you brought the menu in. You brought the menu. Let me pull this menu out. Great menu, too. You got your
my kids
on here. How do you come up with all of these different things, especially when you're talking about price and how much it costs for you guys to buy supplies versus the franchise stores? You guys, a lot of great things on here. I'm looking at sweet Asian chili, and I'm looking at orange chicken. I'm looking at a whole array of things.
My husband, orders the product. I'm really more like social media. I don't even want to say the face because he is as well, but he does all the hard work, boots on the ground stuff. But so he has a formula, right? Like this is what it costs. This is how much we need to make. I mean, in some items we make more than others. There's hardly any markup in the chicken wings because the price of them have gone up so much. It's like I can't price it, right? I mean, if I tried to price it so that I made a profit, you wouldn't buy it. I mean, you
how
have
small
to.
The wing is now.
I know.
I'm like, really?
It's so some things are just, I don't want to say loss leaders, but some things they may not make any money on, and you just hope that maybe they get a pizza and wings. You just know that you're not going to make anything on wings.
What is you guys' best seller?
Oh gosh, I would say recently in the last year, our Detroit style pizza is pretty new for us. When I say new, like last 2 years, and it is taken off. We have a fresh salad bar, so we do. It's hard to find a fresh salad bar. Places don't. I mean, most of places didn't bring them back after COVID.
Is that why you went to your social media and grabbed their phone and was like, boom?
I mean, I'm really proud of our salad bar. It is beautiful and fresh, and because it is well known and people come in, like, I don't have waste. I mean, it is always fresh because we are always turning it over. I mean, there's never any, like, nothing ever goes to waste. I mean, they're filling it up multiple times a day.
That's good because I don't like going to a salad bar and the salad is not. Even I went to Chipotle like last week, and I was almost appalled that this guy was literally cleaning the table in the surface area with his rag around the food, and then had the nerve to the piece of the chicken fell on the thing, and he put it in my thing, and I was like,
oh no,
I didn't want to get him in trouble, but I got really gross behind it.
I understand that. I do.
So my hat's off to you that you guys keep stuff fresh.
Oh, but I don't know if luck is the right word, but because it is so popular, because you can't find them, like nothing ever goes bad. I mean, I'm telling you, like, they'll have to refill the lettuce, all the things 2 or 3 times a day. Like it is constantly fresh. So that's a great thing. It's not there. Nothing ever goes bad.
You guys ever think about franchising? We know Kaplingers. We had Andy of Kaplingers on, and he is doing something really remarkable with Kaplingers. He's allowing franchise turnkey operations of the business to allow individuals to become entrepreneurs for low cost. But back to
that
you,
would be honestly, that would be a question that my husband could answer better than I can, because that's not really part of the business that I'm as educated on as him. Like, I can sit here all day.
How much of the business does he talk to you about?
Well, listen, I know that he definitely
We're going to get to your husband on a special episode.
There are times that, like, I know that he shields me from a lot of things. And, like, I'll ask him, he'll be like, you don't want to know because it'll just make you mad. Because he knows how I am, right?
Okay.
And I'll get mad, and then I get him amped up even more. And when he knows he needs to de-escalate, and he knows if he tells me, I'm just going to escalate, because I got a mouth on me.
What was one of the times that you did, that did happen?
Oh gosh.
Was that when he ordered the extra wings?
I can't think of a time that that's happened. And I talked to you about a second business as well. And there have been times with that he'll mention something to me and I go off on a tangent. And he's like, you need to stop because you're just making me madder. I'm trying. And
that's going to make him go back in the garage even longer.
Right. He's like, I'm trying to get over this and you aren't letting me. And I get that because on the cross side of things, like, I really manage the kids and all that. And like, something will happen and I'll tell him and I'm trying to like not make a big deal. And I'm like, you need to stop because I'm not, this is not something we're going to make a big deal over. So you need to you're on a need to know basis. So we kind of stay in our lane as far as that goes.
What about your kids? This is almost like a future generation thing here. And what I'm noticing with a lot of the businesses that our generation are creating that we're creating, our kids aren't really that much engaged in it because we even talked about, the fact that here it is, a singer that you work with, and your kid was like, hey, just cut the music up and shut up.
Just shut up. Stop talking.
Like, how do you feel about that? And do your kids take any part in what you're doing, or they see the big picture?
So what's funny, when my kids were little, I remember one of my friends was watching them on a Friday night so I could work. And I said, I think my daughter was in kindergarten, and I said, I don't even think her and I are texting. I'm like, I don't even think she realizes that we own Rockstar. Like, she knew that we talk about Rockstar, but I think they were in elementary school before they realized, like, oh, we own, like, oh, that's our shop. Like, you don't just work there, it's ours. Which seems exciting, but it kind of isn't because you never clock out. You never stop working. I can't tell you how many times my husband comes home, takes his shoes off, and is ready to do the next thing, and a call comes, and it's like, we're down on this, the views, and he has to put his shoes on and go right back in. I mean, you never, ever clock out, ever. And the same thing, like, I do the social media. If a message comes through at 11 p.m. and I'm still awake, I'm going to answer it because I'm not 9 to 5. Like, I'm gonna answer your question. So if I don't respond, it's because I'm asleep, and that's the only reason.
Right.
But I remember one time, I use my personal Facebook sort of as a scrapbook. So when my kids say crazy things or something crazy, I always post about it because I want it to show up in my memories because my memory is terrible. And I remember one time my daughter, this is the only reason I remember it because it shows up in my memories. I said something about I had to go to the pizza shop. And I said, maybe one day you'll work there. And I think she was probably 6 or 7. She's like, oh, I don't want to be a pizza girl. Like, that sounds terrible, And I'm like, whatever, I'm not going to make you, but okay. But my son, it's funny. He's an interesting fella. So he does, he juggles and balloon animals and stuff. And so I need to talk to him about tonight because he'll come in and just, we'll be like, hey, free balloon animals. Bring in your family. And he'll come in and he'll just walk around the dining room and make balloon animals for people, and we just, those are the kind of just silly things we do. Again, what can I do to separate myself? Once a month, we do free cupcakes. We call it Cupcake Saturday. A local baker reached out to me and was like, I would, for her, it's a good partnership, right? Like, I pay her with a gift card. And then she brings her cupcakes in, and I post about it, and everyone that comes in to dine in gets a free cupcake. And maybe you love it, and then you place an order with her. So it's like a partnership. So, like, we're always thinking about how can we, enhance our customers' experience? What can we do that other people don't do? How can we partner with other businesses? Because I'm a huge, huge local business supporter. Like I said, if I go and purchase something from another local business, I'm going to post about it. Right. I'm gonna put it on my platform and tell everybody, hey, this is where I go. This is what I got. Check them out.
What's the end game for you guys? You've been in business for 17 years now.
I would say
you've been in the pizza industry for 17 years.
I would say we are still even to this day, after 17 years, which is probably not something that a lot of people would realize, I mean, there are still times we live week to week. Like, we do not have a cushion. We do not have, because of all the things that keep coming up. And kids are expensive, and they like to do things. They want to, so it's like all the costs.
Entrepreneurship is 24/7.
So it's like
you don't shut down.
No, and so it's like I just ultimately the ultimate goal is to like not have to worry week to week. Is it not have to put off paying for something? I mean that's because we're still at the stage where it's like, hey, I'm signing my kid up for rowing, and my husband will be like, hey, so pay that on Friday. You know what I mean? Because of all the other things that come up and all the, it would be great. And I mean, but I'm not complaining because we are very blessed and we are able to do a lot of things with our kids and give our kids. See, in the early days, we were broke, and my kids don't even know how broke we were. I mean, because we would go to parks and do the free movies and take them creek stomping because I couldn't afford to put them in camps. I couldn't afford to do some of those things, and then we finally turned.
And really, we like to shield our kids from the downside of being an entrepreneur.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, so this is a story. We introduced the keto crust, which got a huge response, and it made like wow. So I remember that was in the summer, 4 or 5 years ago.
Tell them what the keto crust is for those that don't know.
It's a low carb pizza crust. So if you're diabetic, if you're watching your carbs, trying to eat low carb, a low carb diet, it's a crust that is extremely low carb that you can have that will fit into your macros or whatever. And I don't know anybody. We've been doing it a long time. So when we first started doing it, we were the only ones. There might be some other ones. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I don't always pay attention. Do you know what I mean? I kind of keep my eyes on what are we doing? And I do like try to, little things will permeate, but I don't really overly watch what other people are doing. But we had introduced that, and that suddenly was like, wow, we went from like, I don't know if the account's going to be in the negative this week to being like, okay, we're okay. So we had decided we hadn't been on vacation in forever. So we went ahead and we booked. We wanted to take the kids to Universal Studios. At the time, we were a huge Harry Potter family, and that's where the Harry Potter world is.
I've been there before, and I had the
butter beer.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take the kids, and so we booked it. We got our tickets. We were going to drive, and we got our park tickets, and we paid for our hotel. Well, then don't you know it? Like business, I swear to God, it seemed like as soon as we made that, $1,800 whatever, business kind of went like this. And now we're like, oh my God. And we had booked it for December, so we still had 3 or 4 months. My husband and I had to go donate plasma so that we had the money for gas and food. Because we already had our park tickets and we already had our hotel. All we needed was the gas to get there and back and the food and whatever. We knew the kids wanted wands. And I hate needles, but we did. We went and donated plasma. And between the two of us, we made, I want to say it was $1,600 because it was $800 a piece. And he hates needles too. And we would go and we'd be sitting there and I would just be sitting there squeezing the ball thinking about, I would have to close my eyes and think about all the fun I was going to have at Universal, like to get through that process. And then they loaded on cards, and that's how so it was like the first part of the vacation was paid, and then business kind of wasn't, and we had to figure out because it was all booked.
You don't really hear all of these hiccups
right
with small businesses. I think people go in there and don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. No. What if you can't meet payroll? What will happen if this happens? What happens if somebody gets sick or get injured? There's all kind of things that can happen with a business, but the fact that you and your husband gave plasma to allow your kids
to be able to finish this vacation that we had booked.
That's
and
crazy.
I'm going to tell you, this is my life. So of course my son, I mean, these wands are at the time were $50, $55. He lost it. He lost it. And I was like, dude, you don't even know what I did to be able to pay for that wand. Are you kidding me right now? Like, literal blood, sweat, and tears.
Let's not even talk about how much it costs to buy lemonade there.
Oh my gosh. But do you know what? I will say this. So we get back home and I'm still calling Lost and Found, right? To see if it's been turned in. And I get a lady on the phone. I mean, I'm calling every day. And she was like, listen, I'm going to send you on to someone. She said, I can't promise that they'll replace it, but they might. So she puts me on with somebody and I explained to her and I said, listen, I have no expectations here. It wasn't even my idea. And she was like, listen, if you pay the postage, we'll send you another one. And the postage was like $12. And they sent me his $55 wand.
Wow.
So but you know what I believe? I truly believe the more you put the more good you put out, the more you're rewarded. Like, it's just karma. And I feel like we try to be good people. We try to do good things. And I am constantly seeing in the universe the rewards for that. And that's what I tell my kids. I'm like, listen, do the right thing. Even when no one's watching, even like I'm telling you, it will pay off. It may not be today. It may not be next month. It might not even be for a year. But I promise you, the more good that you do and the better person you are, the more you will be rewarded. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. And I've seen that in my own life time and time again.
And you guys have definitely done that time and time again with Rockstar Pizza and the city of not Noblesville, the city of Brownsburg. Before we wrap up, you bought me one of the special type pizzas.
I did, and I can't promise how it looks now because it's been there for a while.
That's all right, but let's see what this is.
It's a deep dish, beef, extra cheese.
That is crazy. Is this called a deep dish?
That's our Chicago style deep dish.
Holy crap!
It's pretty heavy, isn't it? The box, yeah.
The whole thing is heavy. So after this episode, we're gonna sit down and have some of this and enjoy. What, outside of giving the plasma, what keeps you, not your husband, not your family, you? Because the name Rockstar is an indication of your husband's love for you. What keeps you in that beast mindset to not only give to the city of Brownsburg, the state of Indiana itself as a whole, but what keeps you in that beast mindset?
Honestly, it's who I am. Like, I have a servant's heart, and I feel blessed that it wouldn't matter what I did. I would try to find a way to give back. Whatever I have, I will share. And I feel really fortunate. I'm trying to think of an example. So, like, anytime my kids are involved in an activity, I always say to the coach, do you want to have a pizza party? I'm happy to do that. Like, I just want to spread joy. It's just what feeds my soul. It just feeds my soul. Like, to put a smile on someone else's face, to make somebody's day. I was just telling my daughter this last night. I was like, when you're feeling down, and I've had a hard week, and I don't know what it is. I feel like it's the moon. But when I'm feeling down and depressed, what gets me out of it is random acts of kindness. It's doing good for others. That is the one thing that makes me feel better. If I can, that's when I really dig deep and think, how can I bless somebody else? What can I do that's going to blow somebody's mind? And then people are like, I'm like, but I'm kind of selfish because I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it. I am doing it, but I'm doing it because the way it feeds my soul. It's what makes me feel good. So I don't know. That's just who I am. Like, I'm like, how can I give back? How can we do it? It's not for because I want to be the best pizza place in town. It's just, and my husband is the same way. Like, we really are. He's the same way. Listen, I know he gives away pizza that I don't know about and does things that I have no idea, just like I do.
He don't want to tell you that because he'll be in the garage.
But the thing about it is like, even people have no idea what we do, and it feels weird to even talk about because I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but people have no idea, like, the little things here and there that we do, and I don't even know. Because I don't know the things that he does. Like, somebody, literally, I can't tell you how many times I've seen on Facebook or someone's like, thank you, Ron Matthews, for whatever. And I'm like, you did that? He's like, oh, yeah, I was just, whatever. And I'm like, oh, Kat, that's awesome. Right, we just don't, and he supports me. Listen, a few years ago, when Red for Ed was going to the State House, I had the idea. I said, what if we gave away free pizza to everyone with a badge from the school on that day, on that Tuesday? And I don't just mean teachers, but I mean aides, bus drivers. What if they came in and we just took care of them to show them that we support them? Because teachers are so important. A whole pizza or a slice of pizza? So what we did was this. You had choices. You could either get a small 10-inch pizza, whatever you wanted. You could get an 8-inch sub, which our subs are great. Or you could come in and have a buffet with our salad or whatever. We had people, because they were at the State House, we had people from Fort Wayne. My husband had to run to GFS to get supplies.
Thank
3
God
times
for
that day.
GFS.
Listen, and let me tell you, this is the power of small business. So there's a little place around the corner from us called the Hayloft, and they do cupcakes. And I reached out to the owner, who's wonderful. Her name's Sarah, and I said, I've got this crazy idea. Would you be willing to donate cupcakes, red icing? And she ended up, we didn't know how big it was going to be. I think she ended up donating like 10 to 12 dozen cupcakes. And when it was all said and done, when the smoke had cleared, because we would ring the stuff up and then free it out. I think we gave away about $8,000 worth of food. That's the craziest thing I've ever proposed to him. I mean, I remember we were laying in bed.
But
and
you
I'm
know, it made you feel good. It's part of your character.
I just wanted to, because there was a lot of dissent. There were people that were pushing back against, and I'm like, you know what? These teachers spend more time with my kids when they're awake than I do. Mm-hmm. Like, it's an important job, and I want them to feel our support. I want them to know how much we appreciate them. Like, I mean, God bless my husband, because literally I'm like, hey, how about we just give away free food for the entire day to whoever comes in with them? And he's like, okay, Colby. You know, he's so supportive, and he doesn't ever tell me no when I get these
Did he go in the
crazy
garage
ideas.
after he gave you the yell?
No, but I'll tell you what, I wasn't even there working most of the day. I was at home with the kids. That's the other thing. I set these things up, right? He does all the work, and then everyone's like, thank you, Colby. And he's like, yeah, thank you, Colby. Even though he's made all the food, did all the runs, he's like the boots on the ground. And sometimes I get the credit when I don't deserve it, just because it was my idea.
I really want to thank you for taking the time to come in and bring us such a beautiful pizza that we're going to enjoy after the show. How can the viewers reach out to you and support and get the pizza themselves?
Well, our Facebook page, Rockstar Pizza, is the easiest. We have a website, rockstarpizza.net, not .com. You can order online. And then, like I said, I
What's your phone number? Because I like to just dial the number.
317-858-1188. See, you're old school, because a lot of people, like, I have friends that are like, I don't want to talk to a person. Like, I just want to order online.
Well, it depends. Now, if thank you for calling, blah, blah, blah. That drives me nuts. But you guys have somebody that literally picks up the phone.
Oh, yeah. So when you call, you're going to hear a recording, right? But that's only because, like, if the phones are tied up, but then it's going to tell you what the special of the day is. Okay. So this is kind of fun. Our recording, do you remember Kelly McKay from WZPL?
I sure do.
She's our recording voice. So
Really?
She's a friend of mine from back working at Epic Records, and she's in Florida now, and we needed a new recording voice. And again, more goods you put out. I reached out to her, and she did it for free. Put it all together and sent it to us, and we have it, she's our voice. And I told her, I said, do whatever you want. I don't even care. So one of the days she says, Z99. Oh, I'm just kidding. It's Rockstar Pizza. She kind of riffs on that. So she's our on hold voice. It's Kelly McKay.
Once again, I'd like to say thank you for coming in, sharing such a great story of the development of Rockstar Pizza. We're going to have your husband back to tell us about another venture that your whole family is doing. But in the meantime, make sure you guys support local businesses, especially in the city of Brownsburg. And you don't have to necessarily be from Brownsburg. Take a drive to Brownsburg and enjoy a night on the town and try the delicious salad bar. But more importantly, you help and support local-owned business that has that beast mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.